We are going to share our thoughts on feminism. And the question we are asking, has it empowered women or disempowered women?
With every movement, it happens because there's an issue that needs to be addressed. Feminism came as a result to respond to that.
Scripture tells us that male and female God created. He didn't say, I created this one more important than the other.
Feminism is not a fight against men and women. It's about the system. I know many women who perpetuate patriarchy. They're the ones who say, my daughter will not go to school 18.
If you're to win any war, it has to be a combination of three things. Clear identification of the enemy. What problem are you fighting?
I find that it's more women actually who say that without a man, I don't know how I'll manage. I am weak. In other words, you are trying to say that you are insufficient, that God did not make you complete without a man.
Some men are running, but then I always ask them, what's the problem? My wife is empowered. What's wrong with being empowered?
Hello and welcome back to Reality Check. This channel cares for hearts and minds. Every single week we have conversations that hopefully give you information to take care of your health, your mental health, a little better than you did yesterday, than you did last month, than you did last year. So if there are certain things that you are not conscious of, like anxiety or depression, or why am I feeling sad, why am I angry, hopefully this show will enable you to start thinking and taking better care of your mental health. My name is Rachel Mwine, excited to be back again with you. Dr. Ivas, who you all know, is the founder of International Center for Mental Health and Family Care. And we have a guest. It's always nice to have people visit the show and lend us their insights. And it's none other than Beverly Nambozo. Oh my gosh, you're going to help me with your married name. Inse?
Why is that hard for you, Rachel?
I don't know. But every time I see it, Nsenyumva.
Yeah.
Nsenyumva.
Nsengiumva.
Oh,
it means I pray to a listening God.
That's what it means?
Yes, I pray to a listening God.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, I pray to a God who listens.
Wow. What a name to carry around.
Yes,
That's so prophetic.
All of them, all the siblings carry such names, yes.
Nice. So guys, Beverly's here. She's a poet and a mother of 4 girls. And today she joins us to have a conversation that would otherwise be controversial. But today we're choosing to have it in a civil manner.
Yes.
And because we're all adults here, we are going to share our thoughts on feminism. And the question we are asking, has it empowered women or disempowered women? Okay? And we're going to talk about it from all fronts. Hopefully the time allows. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I think a good place to start would be understanding feminism. I guess where it started, who started it, what were they thinking? Because like I mentioned before we came on the air, this is one of those conversations where when somebody mentions it, because it's very divisive,
Yes.
people are like, I don't want to hear it. I don't even care who started it. But I think it's important to know.
It is.
So where did this movement begin? Should we give the honor to our guest? Okay.
Where did the movement begin? With every movement, it happens because there's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Sure.
When you have an opposition in any country, it's because they feel they need to address something the ruling government may not be addressing. If you have a new education system, it's because they believe the old education system has some gaps. And feminism came as a result to respond to that. Where it began, I don't know, but I can speak of places where feminism, which lays on the foundation of enabling women to have rights and access because they did not have. People saw, but why don't women have access to leadership? In places, some places women started voting only after Second World War, which is recent. And people said, why don't women vote? Let them vote. And so feminism supported that. Wait a second. Why is it when there are girls and boys in a home, only the boys go to school? Feminism addressed it and said girls should go to school. Why are girls getting married as young as 11? That's a problem. And so it came up as to address those
Issues.
Yes. We think it's recent. I don't think it's recent, though. We think it's recent maybe because our culture is young.
Maybe.
It's not recent. If we look at biblical times, feminist principles were used when Miriam sought to look after her brother Moses and said, I'm going to look after you. She used her wit and her excellence, did not step back and say, because I'm a woman, I won't. And because of that, we have a gentleman who saved an entire nation. Principles of Elizabeth, who was a husband to Zechariah.
A wife,
A wife to Zechariah.
Yes.
And when he refused to do God's bidding, God made him mute. You see,
Yes.
now that's the principle of feminism. You're not doing that job, okay,
Give it
the
to
madam
someone
will
else.
do it.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I have said go. So I think it's that. And you said the history. I'm going to stop talking now because your question was, where did it come from? I think
Yeah.
it's not new. And I'm looking at principles from the Bible. Also, men went to war. Remember, men went to war. And so women had to take the mantle. In Japan, in Russia, women had to take the mantle because the men had gone to war. And many of them who did return were wounded psychologically, physically. Who held the fort? So you think the women sat back with their children and said, excuse me, I'm a woman, the man was responsible, let's wait for daddy to come back from war. He didn't. And that was maybe the first wave of women having to actually hold the front line. Think of Florence Nightingale when she went and looked after all those soldiers. That was feminism. She walked around, looked after them, treated them. She was a nurse. And the women who went to war, the women who stayed behind, they had to apply principles of feminism and not wait. So feminism is just, listen, women are capable, let them have access. Women do. Yes, just opening the space.
To allow them to
Yes, and it's
participate
not that they
in-
even needed your permission, but the system made it that they were not given the platform to. And so feminism said, okay, here's your platform, use it, yes.
That's the first definition that I felt like, okay, that tracks. It makes sense. You know, I mean, if women are not being allowed to do things that ideally should be done, I mean, like
Yes.
education,
Yes.
there's no reason why it should be gender focused or gender biased.
Yes.
What else did you refer to? I think you talked about education.
Yes, education, getting married
Getting
young.
married
Why
young,
should
yeah, like,
at
why
11 and you justify that?
doesn't make
no,
any sense.
No.
And so saying
Voting.
even voting, saying that somebody comes to say, no, the system is not addressing this issue.
Yes.
Let us address it. I think it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of
It
sense.
does, and I really thank you for giving it that background. And I strongly believe the women had valid concerns.
Yes.
And I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I think it meant well.
Yeah.
All these biases. There was a genuine cause.
Yes.
I mean, you talked about voting
Yes.
and the patriarchal society and where women are considered second-hand,
Yes.
second-class citizens. They can't vote. They can't decision making. Decision making is a very important aspect of any human being, especially adults. So just imagine you're an adult and all the decisions you have to make have to be made. So, all the decisions around your life have to be made by someone else. So decision making, but also access to resources, economics,
Yes.
Ownership of property,
yes.
whatever property it is. That was a big issue. Traditional aspects like succession, very, very important. Now, when I'm talking about this, I think we've already seen, we already are seeing what is still happening in some societies. So that was a big issue. Of course, this has evolved over time, but that was a big issue. Yes. How about spiritual matters in church? And I'm not an authority on some of these things, but I think I'm going to tread where the angels have feared. I think we still have there was a challenge then, and it's still there. I was telling some group on Friday that I'm not so sure women can be bishops. Like that conversation.
Yes.
So even on spiritual matters, even on ministry aspects, oh, a woman, no, you can't be. Now, think about it, like, why? But I don't want to open a can of worms.
Yes.
But that's something. Imagine they're saying, oh, a man can be a bishop, but you can't be. and think about women and spiritual matters. So those kinds of inequalities, imbalance, that was a very big issue. And also religious beliefs. There are certain religious beliefs like, which of course women had a concern about, like how, okay, aspects around submission, for instance, submission, how it gets hijacked, how it got hijacked then, and it still gets hijacked into oppression. You know, so it gets, so some of those things that bring inequality in terms of both human beings considered equal before God. Because let's go back to scripture in Genesis. Scripture tells us that male and female, God created them. He didn't say, I created this one more important than the other. Both of them created. So I think, answering your question, Rachel, there were issues, and you said it perfectly. Every movement is addressing something. So they were very, very valid aspects. I still believe they are still there.
To this day.
To this day.
To this day.
So it has evolved over time, but it's still there.
And let's talk about the evolving. I think that while I understand its genesis and what it was meant to do, and I mean, like I said, it sounds reasonable that they are here, it's here to address certain issues. It has evolved over time in terms of how it is understood, how it is received by different generations. Today we talk about Gen Z, we talk about millennials.
There's Alpha here after Gen Z.
Gen Alpha.
Are those our children?
I think those are our kids.
All right.
I need to do my research on that. But we see so many generations receiving feminism in some misconstrued, some misunderstood, some maybe lacking knowledge and understanding of where it started and what it means, that it has created a very contentious conversation around feminism. So I want us to talk about how it has evolved and maybe dwell on where it is now.
You know, it's not feminism that has evolved. It is culture that has evolved around it. It's almost like saying salvation has evolved because people wear tight jeans to church. It hasn't. God is still the same. His blood is still valid. I believe feminism was a good and perfect gift, just like salvation is. However, there are Christians you don't want to be in the same room with, and yet they have received salvation, but they will introduce you into things and you feel you're going into an occult, you see, in the name of Jesus. Therefore, feminism is not the problem. It's the culture around it. So Jesus is not the problem. It's the culture around it where people have said, how about we create this song? And therefore, we're now no longer singing hymns, we're doing rap. We are now singing words that are unintelligible in the name of, let's get more of the youth, you see. But why, if it worked for us, why is it now? When I was younger, hymns worked for me. Why do we think now these
are a better
15-year-old of today, you know what I mean? 15 is 15. Salvation is salvation. So feminism, it's the culture around it. And therefore, I can understand why it seems like it has evolved. It hasn't. It's the culture that has now got so distracted by many other things. They think, I think we gave them enough time. Let's move on to other things. Enough already. We've given them. Please, they're female presidents. What more do they want? We have given them a female Speaker of Parliament. We have given them. You did not give us. You did not give us. You see, we gave them. What more do they want? And so we need to understand that what was it purposed for? Has it been achieved? And what Dr. Eva said is right, and what you said, there are still challenges. I know someone who is in HIV/AIDS research said the number of girls who are being sold by their parents for sex to get the next meal is unimaginable in Uganda. It's unimaginable. And the rise of HIV and AIDS is so paramount. We don't talk about HIV and AIDS as much because there's so many other things. There was COVID, and now there's so many others. Does it mean HIV and AIDS is not?
Stopped, no.
It still exists. And have I answered your question?
I think you have.
Yes.
And maybe just a follow-up on that is, that attitude of we have given them
Yes.
a female speaker, we have given, why do we feel the need to abandon the conversation
Yes.
and move on to something
Yes.
else? I feel like there's something there.
Or because it was never a conversation. It always appeared a fight. So it was never a conversation.
Yeah.
95 was when the Beijing Platform Faction happened, when people went to China, Beijing, and they marched. I know people in Uganda who did, because it's recent. It's what, 30 years?
Almost 30 years,
30
yeah.
years. It's really recent. And when they came back, there was so much funding. In 1993, it was Nairobi. In 1995, Beijing. There was so much funding. ACFOD happened, and many, actually ACFOD occurred in 1985, but so many NGOs got funding for women's support. And the Beijing Platforms for Action were based on great principles: education, leadership, so many, health, great things. And people said, wonderful. But then they got scared because they said, we have been oppressing the women. What will happen when they're not? And by the way, feminism is not a fight against men and women. It's about the system.
I'm so glad
It's
you
not.
said that.
It's not a fight.
Yeah.
People think it's a fight. It's not a fight against men and women. I know many women who perpetuate patriarchy.
Yeah.
They're the ones who say, my daughter will not go to school 18. Do you know when Honorable Joyce Impanga was born, they said it's a pity she's not a boy because girls were getting married at 16. She wrote a book about it, thankfully, before she died.
Yeah.
Because her father said, good brains wasted on a girl. You're only good for, and she became the first woman, state woman of, first many things, first of many things. And that was a feminist, you see. Her father, in his tradition, a great man, that's what he knew. But because of feminist principles that supported people like her with great brains, she was able to open the door for so many. And all her sisters as well have been raised. Because she was the eldest in her family, all her sisters followed suit because the door was opened. One of her sisters who died, the one who died last year, 2 years ago, Dr. Chigundo, Dr. Musoke, sorry. When before her death, she was in Kenya. Do you know how many children she saved because of the kangaroo method from death? Now, why did that happen? Feminism from her sister, who was taken to Gayaza, taken to other schools. And by the way, there were almost no female doctors those days. She had to go to, I don't know which school, because Gayaza did not have medicine, sciences. She went to Buddo. But because of feminism, lives were saved. Do you see how it ripples down, you see? And so we have to, so it's not been a conversation because it's a shock to the system. You can't say, where are you going, honey? I'm going to vote. You've been cooking all these years, suddenly voting.
Yes.
And therefore, it's been a fight for a long time because it's been hard to understand and integrate into the culture that has been maintained for so long.
And unlearn.
And it takes a lot. And people are still unlearning. Because they realize that, you mean when we were oppressing women, we didn't know how much power they had. This is how much power they had. What? It's still a shock to people. That's why some people say, your daughter is an engineer? What?
Like how?
Imagine.
In fact, we are amazed by it.
We're amazed.
We shouldn't be.
Yeah, you see, so it's still a shock to some people that they're women astronauts. The first female astronaut, and it's in the papers, you see.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. So that transition,
the transition, I guess, and shock to society is what creates the hold up, wait a minute, I still need time to adjust. What's going on?
Even Gen Zs are adjusting in their own way. They're still, they're more it's open to it, but, or maybe it's now flipped and they're like, for them, they've grown up, women are strong. For them now it's the reverse. They've grown up and every girl in their class is strong. They don't understand what you're talking about, dear grandmother. So
I guess. Dr. Evans. I'm listening.
Nothing.
No, it's a very interesting conversation, by the way. As she was talking, I just remembered that one time I was parking, and then a man walks up to me and says, "Why are you driving a man's car?"
Oh,
you see?
Serious?
Yes. So look, for me, my submission is this, Rachel. I think, first of all, when you think, who started that? Who started that mindset? Which the women were fighting. We just have to know that, and I'll speak as a student of society. These are stereotypes, these are attitudes. There's nothing like they are defining us. Someone just perceives you a certain way, and then it becomes a systemic issue. Now, I'm really glad that you mentioned that one of the problems for me, because we've talked about what feminism was focusing on,
Yeah.
and it all sounds like a good cause, and it was a good cause, absolutely. But now when it was hijacked into a fight between men and women, that's what I have a problem with. Now, I understand, I'll tell you what, and I'm sure probably you've heard this, that if you're to win any war, it has to be a combination of three things. Number one, clear identification of the enemy,
Yeah.
right? What problem are you fighting? The second one is strategy, right? Strategy. And the third one is the character of the fighter. Those are important. So for me, I feel the cause, as we have perfectly talked about it, they had a good point. There was inequality. I still, by the way, it's still there. It's still there. It's still there. I was sharing with a group last week that my mom didn't go to school. She went to school for one day. She had her one day in school, and this is what happened. When missionaries came, that her dad, my grandfather, worked with missionaries, and they offered to take all the children to school. But so when she went to school one day, she got a dress, she got books, she got 2 books, and then she got a pencil. When she got back home, the mom said, never go back. Got the books, told them, and then threw I don't know where, and then told her, education is for your brothers. Right? Up to today. Actually, the reason we went to school, our mom fought for us. Because of that experience. Right? She vowed to herself and said, if God ever gives me a daughter, I'll take them to school.
That's so beautiful.
You see that? Now, but that my mom is now 91. But we are talking, these things still happening.
Of course they do.
Right? And women themselves.
Women
Themselves perpetuating that. So what I'm talking about is the problem. What is the problem? Please note, I'm not saying who is the problem.
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Yes.
Number 2, what strategy am I putting together to address that problem? Right? And who am I? So character, strategy, and identification of the problem. So that's where, for me, that's the focus. And that's why by the way, I don't enjoy conversations about feminism, because I just feel like we lost it. I have so much admiration for the ladies that started this. God bless them. But I really feel at a certain point, as it evolved, they lost the point. Because then it became a fight between men
and women. Yes.
Now, I've always interested people. Which man? Because you have a son, you have a brother, you have now you fight, because if it becomes a game of gender, and which it has turned into, by the way. Oh, men have but which men? Because this is a systemic issue. If you look at lack of resources, all these things are imprinted on people's brains. Because if my mom, okay, let me talk about my grandmother. We don't see my grandfather in the picture saying, "Mom, don't go," telling my mom not to go to school. But we are seeing the mom herself saying, "Don't go to school. Education is not for women." And then we also see a mom, my mom, who changed the whole trajectory.
And she said, "Children go to school."
She said, "Children will go to school." All our education was influenced by our mom. Right? And my dad, later on, his eyes opened and he said, yes. And I still remember his words. He said, the only lasting wealth you can give to your child is education. But he saw this way later. We were in S4, but our mom, right from the side, said, every child has to go to school. They have to have a certificate for themselves, especially my daughters. So what are we saying? That it's a fight between men and women. So me, that's the challenge I have. As it evolved, we've lost it. And it's very easy to lose strategy, to lose track of who your problem is. Now, when you lose a sense of what the problem is, you're going to be doing and coordinated fights and shooting in different directions. So that's the challenge, Rachel, that I feel.
It's not men against women,
It's not men against women. And now why people hate it, why people hear feminism and they want to run, or why some women or girls are jumping onto it and saying, oh, me, I'm a feminist and I don't care. Honestly, allow me to risk and say, some people don't even understand where it's coming from.
Don't understand that the values were really, the people women had no access, literally. No or little access to basic things.
Things.
Imagine not voting. And how are you supposed to serve and acknowledge your country?
Imagine food taboos. Imagine food taboos. Let's come back
there
home.
You go.
Imagine food. Yes. I've taken interest to have a deeper conversation with my mom to understand certain things. You see, food taboos. They were not allowed to take most of the protein-based foods. Goat's meat, no egg, no chicken, no zenene.
Are you serious?
You know, my mom told me they weren't allowed to do that. And what does that? What's
and there was no reason, just because you're a girl.
No reason, and they would say a woman doesn't take this. A woman doesn't take this. Where did that come from? Now, do you think that's an issue where you have to use an aggressive strategy? Who are you shooting at? This is a mindset issue. And so our strategy, so I really feel like over time we've lost it. We have lost it because, so we've lost it on that end, but also we've lost an opportunity to have men as gatekeepers. Yes, because you see, you can't fight this battle alone. First of all,
you can't.
First of all, I want to tell you it's wrong for us to think it's only men that have been against us.
No, women are perpetuated so much.
That for me is the surprising thing, that there are women who are actually perpetuating the very thing that feminism is trying to.
And they use Bible verses of submission.
Up to now, we're still doing
it.
You see, so I really feel, look, we just, and I'm so glad we can have this conversation because the biggest problem is for us to think it's a fight against men.
No, it's not.
And this, again, trust things, wrong perceptions and attitudes have a way, a subtle way of crossing from one generation to another. Negativity has a way of just crossing, and you don't have to put in a lot of energy. You just need to say one word. What's wrong with men? Men are selfish. Men are what? And then it just crosses.
It continues,
It continues.
And why it's a problem now, there are many women who think they said they wanted to be the same as men. No. Access. That's it. If a woman happens to be a capable leader to run the organization, it's because she was capable, not because she was a woman. And there are many women who say, you see, so when a woman comes and says, I'm exhausted, I'm running this organization, you see, you wanted. No, that's not the right response. What happened to empathy? She's saying it like a man would say it the same way. She's saying it not because of feminism. She's saying it's been an exhausting day. That is it. Can we address the day that was exhausting? Don't go back and say it's because they wanted. Now you see, you're there. Now you see. Let's see how you'll manage when you're pregnant. For what? So what happened? And then they change, they make it ugly. So now they're making feminism ugly because women were capable and are now running organizations when they happen to become exhausted, or they happen to have to look after children, or and they say, you wanted it. Now let's see how you manage. What? What kind of attitude is that? What kind of attitude is that? You see? And when the women do that, they are then becoming a bigger problem as well. Because you're not...
because you see, babe, the way when you gave it history, you talked about the Beijing conference and all that, and indeed, but then let's go back to strategy. The kind of aggression. Now, when you have a good case,
Yes.
You can lose it through strategy.
Yes.
Yes.
Wrong strategy.
Very
Yes.
easily.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
And so, look, human nature, I've always said, all human nature is selfish and it is defiant. Those two
Yeah.
things, by the way, all of life revolves around this.
Yeah.
All the laws in the Bible and natural laws and all, they are always trying to address these two
those
things.
Yes.
So if men were favored by the system,
Yes.
they are not the problem.
Yeah.
So once you're fighting systemic
Yes.
issues, then you don't address them aggressively.
Yes. Yeah.
If a snake enters here, I'm not going to get a stick and hit this TV screen because I'm going to lose it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, so I think for me, I still want to emphasize
Yeah.
strategy. So a strategy of aggression,
Yes.
because aggression begets aggression.
Yes. Of course. Yeah.
You see, that's number one. Number two, trivializing issues.
Yes.
I think women have also gotten into trivializing things, and we've lost the big case
Yes.
because that's where we started.
Yes.
What's wrong with saying no, by the way? Because you need to sensitize people.
Yes.
Now, in psychology, we call it cognitive desensitization, because everything we do, we've sensitized the mind to direct our actions. Now, if you're going to change attitudes, you're going to do intentional desensitization.
Yeah.
So if you have to desensitize people, do you have to be aggressive?
No.
No.
Do you? So I really feel we lost it as women on that front. We got aggressive, we got trivial, but we also plunged into one more thing. Can I tell you what it is? Self-proof.
We're trying to prove ourselves.
So when you get into proving yourself, you're going to lose whatever cause you are pursuing. Now, self-proof is always a result of low self-esteem, speaking as a psychologist. You know, I need to know, because when I identify an issue, well, we've had these conversations here, Rachel. When I check and I know myself, it is called self-awareness. When I check around me and I see things happening that are affecting me, it's called social awareness. But then the third step is skill for problem solving. Now, when I'm solving a problem, I'm not going to do that by asserting myself the wrong way, the self-proof thing. And I think that has worked against the cause that feminists had.
Yeah.
Because if I come and say, don't you know I'm this? Look, now what you were talking about, if I am working, then I use negotiation. I'd say what we have always talked about here. If you're overwhelmed, ask for help.
Yes.
Ask for help.
Yes. Yes.
Calm down.
Yes.
Now, what I think happened is that we lost it because then our strategy didn't promote peaceful coexistence of genders. So it became war of genders. Now,
Which wasn't
which
that
wasn't
aim.
which wasn't
Do you
the
think
game.
though that it became aggressive? Imagine you're telling somebody the first time, don't allow this 12-year-old girl to get married. They don't listen. Please, there are reasons. Her body's young. She's got so much potential. Do not. The second time, the third time, HIV and AIDS, pregnancy, death and what? They don't listen. The fourth time, at what point does a peaceful negotiation have to escalate? And I think that's why consistently it's been seen as many feminists or feminism structures are aggressive because the first time we said, she's a child, she's brilliant. Do you know she could go to this university and get a scholarship? But how about the boy? The boy who's a drunkard. But the second time, the third time, do you think after the fourth time, in other words, when does the place of peaceful negotiation has to escalate? Or what are the measures? Or what are the measures where, because you've said it the first, second, fourth, and I'm not saying this is not women against men, this is against the system. So you've told the system,
100%.
whoever is governing the system, because it has to be governed by
someone.
Let's look at the law. In 1995, when our constitution was made, that's when the 1.5, was that when they introduced 1.5?
Yes, the 1.5.
So that system worked, I suppose. I think I was a beneficiary because I joined in 1997. Maybe I was, but I didn't do well in S6. I don't know if it mattered. But I know for some who said, oh, the 1.5 enabled me to go to law. So in other words, they used the system of the law to address it. And I think Rebecca Kadaga was instrumental there, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yes.
And so 1, 2, 3 times, maybe they said, what do we do? All right, introduce 1.5 for the girls to enable them to have the platform that they have been missing out on. And that system worked. Another one maybe would be, do they have it now? Equal, what is it? When they say women are encouraged to apply, do they still have that on jobs?
So it is called what? It's called gender parity or something.
Yes, something like that. So I don't know now but when I was applying for jobs, there was a lot of women are encouraged to apply. When
There are many organizations
that still do that.
doing that.
Yes, and now they also encourage those who are maybe physically able differently, and so they use the system to introduce some form of balance, which was really good. I think 1.5 and women are encouraged to apply because before they were not. They were encouraged to get married, but now you're encouraged to apply for a job. Now those systems are good, but sometimes the systems shut their doors, and then you have to. So what would you say? That's why it seems aggressive, and I understand why. Of course, then
the banging of the
and
door.
for example. How many times do I tell you that a 12-year-old girl should not get married and you don't listen?
Like, what is
should
it
I
that you're
walk
not
away and
getting?
say, I've tried my
okay.
best.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I've tried my best. Your daughters have nothing else to do. They're going to have to get married. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
Yes, so what? Yes, so I'd like
No, I
that.
hear you.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's. I think no, I hear you.
Yeah.
And look, when we say strategy,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be just one.
One way.
Just say, oh, you know what, your daughter is going. They need this. There is that place, but you see, there is another where you have. So it's multi. Approach. Now, if you do that, then you're also going to consider that you're dealing with attitudes. Attitudes don't change in such a short time.
Yeah.
There are certain things that are going to change in a short time. There are certain things that are going to take a little longer. However, when you have approached the systemic, you are addressing the systemic aspects.
Yes.
Now, for instance, the 1.5, I don't know whether it's still there.
I'm not
Is it
sure.
still there?
I'm not so sure, but that it was supposed to lift women to a certain level in terms of access to higher education, which was amazing.
Yes.
And a number of other things.
Yes.
And imagine, I can't remember some, but there were so many. So there are
many,
certain
even I can't
strategies
remember,
that
but there are many, yes.
were targeting
targeting, yeah.
The system.
systemic
Yes.
aspects that were holding women back. Now, that is absolutely okay. But you see, so you can say maybe it should be a blend of that. And then a bit of aggression, a bit of the laws. But even implementation of laws should not be horribly antagonistic. I think what we are talking about, that antagonism, that hate campaign.
Yes.
That,
by the time you go, you're exhausted.
You're tired.
You shouldn't be you shouldn't be tired and exhausted.
You see, that male bashing. So there are certain aspects of this feminism that have really worked against
Derailed,
the cause and derailed
Derailed
the
us.
whole agenda. Because you see, if you're doing that, there's a place for wisdom to know that this is not going to work, right? And what we talked about, I mean, let's face it, ladies, at a certain point it has become war of genders.
And that was not the purpose.
And
of
that
it.
was not the purpose.
And yet there are men who really support women so much.
100%.
So many. Actually, if you talk to a man, there are very few who would say, of course I want my daughter to get married. They'll be like, of course I want them to go to school. Of course I want them to receive as much opportunity and abundance as possible. You see?
Now, yes. Now, so you see, that is important. Now, so when a problem is there, when a woman is empowered, it's not only women that benefit. So we need to face it. It's not only women that, it's a family benefits. I mean, we know the power of an empowered woman, and so that is a benefit. So you need to do a little bit of sensitization and desensitization. Desensitization by its nature is going to take long because old habits die hard.
It's a whole culture.
A whole culture, you see, that is going to, but you see, as you approach it that way, then you're also having newer generations coming up. If you give them good information, they're going to look at it. I don't think my son at this level would say a woman's place is in the kitchen.
No.
Unfortunately, there's some women and men who actually do. So, Dr. Ivas, you raised your son well, and I know you raised your son. You're raising your sons wonderfully, but unfortunately, they do. And you know what? They manipulate the institutions that we serve, like the church. Church is a beautiful place of fellowship. They manipulate that.
Yes. Yeah.
And what the church, education, health, you see. And therefore,
and the workplace,
you see, those are beautiful
Yes.
places where both men and women can go and serve the nation and build, raise the economy, but then they manipulate it, and both men and women get confused. See, you may think that you're attacking a woman or a man alone, but you're not. We're not in isolation. When I go and have a meeting, there are men and women there. If women are getting one information and men are getting the other, how does it serve the overall? And then you end up stuck. You're stuck? Yes.
So would we say that there have been gaps in the sensitization and desensitization? That it happened, there was a time when we were at the height of the feminism conversation where lots of information was being perpetuated, whether through media or through conferences and what, and then somehow, because it has been derailed into this fight against, men and women, that even the ones who really believe what it stood for in the beginning kind of have allowed it to grow. It's like a fungus I'm thinking about.
Yes, that's true.
A thing that you just leave there. It was meant for good initially, but because it has all these moving parts that are not even helping the actual cause, people have just sort of resigned to, whatever. Everybody understand feminism the way you want it to.
Yeah, I don't think it has been left actually to do that, because I think it has been abused. And I wish it was left to die by itself, but it's been abused, and we see this happen.
Yeah.
And when we are still focusing on, has it helped women? Has it not? Has it built us? Has it empowered us?
Has it? Yeah. I think
The thing is, yes, it hasn't been left to go. It has been picked, and every person is running with it a certain way.
So we need a re-education.
Yes. So that's why I really feel we need to get back to what were we aiming at, and have we achieved? What kind of achievements have we made? What kind of milestones are we seeing? Have we realized? And what else needs to be done?
Yes.
For instance, babe, you've talked about the church. I really still feel there's a lot to be done.
A lot to be done, yes.
A lot to be done in the church.
To teach.
To teach.
And yes.
Last week I was talking to one of the ministries and speaking. It was an online church, online church of Uganda, and I was telling them we have a lot to do, because you see, if we empower women, even for ministry, women have great potential for ministry. Look at characters in the Bible like Lydia.
Yes.
She did an amazing job. Look at characters like Abigail.
Yes.
Yes.
She saved her family with her wisdom. Now, there are certain special gifts, special traits, special fittings that God has put in a woman, that if she's going to carry the gospel, she's going to do an amazing job. We have special skills for negotiation, convincing people. That's amazing. The church needs to do much. So I was telling them that please empower women. Don't look at women and say, just go and be
quiet.
Be quiet.
Be quiet.
Yeah.
No, the women can do an amazing job. Women can support fellow women, and we have that capacity to support, because we also have a special gift for conversation. What's the gospel about?
Conversation.
It's conversation. So women can do that. You know, so conversation, wisdom, intuition, because that's what we, for instance, see from Abigail.
Yeah.
You know, while the husband was there, he's recorded as the worst man and all. But you know, this woman saw and said, if I don't intervene,
We are going to perish.
we are going to
Yeah.
perish.
Yeah.
Look at Esther.
Yeah. Esther.
Esther
Saved
in the Bible.
how many
Saved her-
people?
her entire-
Amazing, amazing. And so that's something the church needs to do.
Yes.
Conversations around submission. We've talked about this.
Yes.
What does it mean?
Yes.
How does the church understand this? Are you building? Because the scripture says, submit to one another. Now, are you using this again? Because I've mentioned it here, Rachel, that sometimes it feels like culture has actually gotten into the church. Those stereotypes have gotten into that, instead of the church being the light
Yes.
and bringing the right message
Yes.
of emancipation, whatever we want to do, empowerment
Yes.
of women in a healthy way.
In a
So
healthy
I think what we are interested in is, can we empower women for the benefit of society?
And it
Not
benefits
for them
society.
to just
Benefits
feel,
everyone.
It benefits
for the benefit of
society.
society.
It does.
You
It
see
benefits
that?
society. If you want to claim that submission means being weak, being that you're
Yes.
less than, that without a man you are incomplete, that is a problem.
Yeah.
Again, you're saying the salvation of the Lord was also incomplete.
vain.
100%, yes.
His blood was for everyone.
Yeah.
Most of us may have got saved before we were single. Does that mean we're incomplete before we got married? No.
No.
And many women, I find that it's more women actually who say that without a man, I don't know how I'll manage. I am weak. I am this, I am that. No, I am weaker than him. He is. In other words, you are trying to say that you are insufficient, that God did not make you complete without a man. That's what many people try to, and these are contemporary
imply.
people
Absolutely.
who say that my man is more important than me. That is what submission means. I am weak. I am useless without him. That's what they're trying to say.
But
And it's
let's assume
confusing.
that's true. Let's assume that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Then also, a man without a woman is incomplete.
It's incomplete. That
you see,
means-
that's why we are
Yes.
saying, let's promote peaceful coexistence.
Yes.
Because let's face it, friends, men need women.
Women need men. Yeah.
Period. So there is nothing like, oh, I can live without you. See, that's the other challenge. Because I think that the danger of a distorted message on feminism has promoted that kind of thing where people are saying, oh, by the way, I don't need a man. You don't need them. What do you mean? What do you mean? So we all need each other. You see? So if you wish, if I went with that line of conversation, I would say even a man is incomplete without a woman.
Yes, there you
Right?
go.
Point.
So
Yes.
that's what it is. But that's not the conversation.
That's not the
Do you see
conversation.
how that
Yeah.
takes us away from the issues that
From
we
the
were
cause,
trying to-
yes.
Yeah.
You see.
We
So
are
we've come
talking-
so far, and then the
Like
Bible is,
10 steps
in other words,
back.
the word of God is perfect.
Yeah.
They say do not add or subtract
Subtract.
anything.
100%.
Yes.
You see?
But you wanted to self-serve. You think that you are supporting your man by saying, without you, I am weak and I am useless. No.
You're not supporting. You're not empowering.
And the man has, in some cases, by the way, the man hasn't taken you that route.
You're taking
You
yourself
have,
there.
you have cultivated
your
it
mentality.
yourself.
And you think that is the way that and then it's so interesting because I love to cook and I'm a great cook. If anyone comes home, I will serve, like how we've had wonderful fresh fruit from Dr. Evers.
Dr. Evers.
My mother said, please, when someone visits, make sure there's something prepared by the hand. Don't empty the biscuit packet. And that's what, but also I did foods and nutrition in
Oh,
all
yes,
level,
all level,
and it
yeah.
helped. I bake so well. I cook well, all right? Maybe mostly on Sundays, and I love it,
Yeah.
all right? Now, some people think it will take away from me. I cook, I lead teams, I will speak, I will deliver keynote addresses, and I will
Yes.
cook. You see,
Yes.
we are complete
You're
like that.
holistic.
And then other women will take it away from me, will take that joy from me and say, you see, now don't you cook. You see, you said you're a feminist. How does that take
How
it
does
away
that
from
take it away from
What's
you?
How was that? What do you mean?
I can
Don't
do
take
all those
away,
things.
don't make my cooking ugly.
Yeah.
Just
it's
because
beautiful.
I believe in empowerment of women, don't take away my cooking. I love to cook and make my children happy. I love it
Yeah.
when my husband asks for more and says, "Oh my goodness,
You
I
prepared an
love
amazing
it."
meal. Yeah.
Don't make my journey ugly by suggesting that a woman who believes in women's growth and empowerment should not cook. That
Or
we should
home
be,
make.
or even
Yeah,
make
or
a
be a
home.
homemaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I spend a lot of time at home with the children. I do.
yeah.
There's a time when I was always washing their uniforms. I see them off when the van takes them to school. Don't take away, make it ugly. I love to do it.
Yes.
In the same way I love women's empowerment.
Yes.
In the same way I love to deliver keynote addresses. You see how now people make it ugly. You said you wanted. Why aren't you in the office? Hey, no.
You see that?
No, no,
Now
no.
that's where the problem
Don't make it
is.
ugly.
Yeah.
Because you see, they've demonized
Yes.
our special gifts.
You see?
Now,
As women.
yes, as women, because we have actually talked about it here, Rachel. You remember when I was saying there are certain things that are so special about each gender. We deal with detail. Now, people have never realized that the kind of things we do in the home, like homemaking, it has so much detail. You know, like parenting. Our parenting is detail oriented.
Yes.
It's not leadership. It's not authority like men.
the men.
That special contribution of men. Ours is detail. We nurture character. We nurture humility. We nurture care, we nurture compassion, we nurture integrity. Now, that's why we say women nurture the most delicate part of a human being. Is that the most? So can I say, you see, I'm the most important thing. So that's where the distortion, for me, I'm against the distortions that have been created along the way that have made us lose
Yes.
that point.
Meaning we have to be either or.
Exactly.
Some people said, you wanted to be in the boardroom, now you're there.
Now you're
it doesn't
there.
mean that I hate being a
Or
mother.
that you
understand?
exhausted from homemaking,
Yes.
therefore
It doesn't
you're
mean,
losing the
yes, it
plot,
doesn't mean I
you
hate
know?
being a mother.
Yeah,
It
so
doesn't.
if I'm
I love
rushing
being a
home,
mother.
if I'm
Yes.
rushing home to prepare a meal for my family,
Yes.
then don't demonize that.
Don't demonize that.
Now, that's-
just because I came from a board meeting to attend that.
You
Don't
hear that?
Yes.
Now that's where I think, Rachel, we're getting to your question, but
Yeah.
we are not setting it
I
for
see you. I see you.
Has it helped? Has it not? Because you see, babe, the thing is, when I'm rushing home to see my children to all these things, don't make it look like that makes me weak. No, or makes me less. That's the thing. Because this is a special wiring that God put in us so that we can address certain things. And I think that's where most women have lost it. But then also, the thing I have, I have something against this whole movement, trivializing. You've had conversations around, now also men have to wash plates. That's not the thing.
That's not the issue.
That's not
Yeah.
the
It's not the
issue.
issue.
Come on,
Men
don't
are
go
good.
there.
Let me tell you, my husband was, they were raised. Girls and boys do all the work
All the
together.
work,
That's
yes.
how when we just moved in and he was mopping the place, I was embarrassed. He can mop. You will not find any
Squeaky clean.
because that's how they were raised.
Yeah.
Has it made them any different?
No.
No. Has it made him less of a man? No.
Yeah.
When I'm breastfeeding, you know how it is when you're exhausted from breastfeeding. It would be, when they say submit, they say men be considerate. As a considerate husband, he knew there were certain things he had to take care of.
You see that?
I needed to rest, and it was okay.
Yes.
And it was okay.
Yes.
So don't make him being a wonderful husband. Don't demonize that ability of
And
his to be
trivialize his
considerate.
contribution,
Yeah, he's a considerate man. Don't take that away from
Yeah.
him.
Exactly.
Don't take that away from him. Make
You
it
see that?
ugly.
So do you see
Yes.
the distortions
Yeah.
we have
Yes.
nurtured and the danger they have created?
Yeah.
Because then when men are involved, when men
Yes.
are good human beings,
Yes, good human
they are
beings.
perceived
They're
to be
perceived
weak.
to be
Weak, they're not.
You see,
In fact, they're strong because they're secure.
when women are doing great things, they are called men.
Yes.
Yes.
You
Yes.
see that?
Trying
She
to
wants to wear the
emasculate.
trousers
Now
because
you're
she
wearing
earns a certain
trousers.
amount of money. No.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, so this becomes a danger to the
Yes.
entire society
Yes.
because that's why men are confused.
There's a
So
lot of
men are
confusion.
running
Yeah.
because they are running away from an empowered woman. But then I always ask them, what's the problem? My wife is empowered. What's wrong
What
with
is-
being empowered? So you find that they are what we call cognitive distortions that they are running with,
Yes.
but they are not in real life.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then the third problem is where now the whole issue, the whole issue that we are trying to address is brought into
small incidents,
little
small
ugly
yes,
things.
and
Also watch this, also do that.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Is that where we should go? No.
Let's look at
So
the bigger
that's
picture.
where the problem
and,
has
yes.
been. Then also what we talked about, Rachel, now women saying, now that I'm empowered, I don't need a man. What's that?
What do you mean?
So in the process, that's where most
Yes.
empowered women have lost their relationships.
Yes.
Because then they thought
the empowerment was for themselves.
Empowerment was for themselves.
It was for both.
It wasn't
everyone.
for them.
Yeah.
It's for the benefit
Yeah.
of an entire society.
Yeah.
And I really want to say this again, ladies, that I want to interest people because I've ever asked a group this.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're fighting men, you have a little son. This 1 year little, 1 month little son, what has he done? Because this one is
it's going as a war against men.
so if it is war against men, what has
your
this
little one
little
done?
born
Yeah.
boy
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
do you see how we've lost it?
Yeah.
So we need to look at the broader picture and say, what am I? Who am I fighting?
Who am I fighting?
What is
am I
the
fighting?
It was the
Sure.
system that
It
was
was
a
the
problem.
system.
The system of
And
patriarchy.
it is still the system.
Yeah, and it's still the system.
Can I
it's
ask
always
now?
been the system.
My question.
Hello,
Sorry,
Rachel.
And I feel like we've kind of answered it, but I want you both to speak into if then feminism has done some good, in terms of empowering women. I think that even as we talk, and I don't think I'd ever seen it this way, that empowerment can mean I am able to be in the boardroom and I can still
Of
also
course you can.
make,
And nothing should be ugly. Don't
And
make the
nothing should
bottom
be
ugly.
ugly.
Don't make nurturing your children ugly.
So I guess the question that we are attempting to answer today is, has it empowered women or disempowered them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it has empowered because of the way in which it approached the system. If we look at that, the 1.5, all these things, because it was able to address the problems in the system by using law and other ways that are approved for the nation
good.
or for the community. Yes, it has empowered. But then what do you mean by empowered? You see, that's another
good
thing. So what do you mean? Because some people think when they say I'm empowered, they think, now I'm aggressive. No. You see, some people say, you see, I'm empowered. Empowerment is not aggressive. Empowerment means I'm aware. Empowerment means now I'm part of a conversation that was important.
Skill.
I have skills. Now I'm able to use my skills, or now I'm able to acquire skills. That's what empowerment means. And that's why when there are girls' empowerment programs, or it means that they want girls to acquire skills in IT skills or whatever it is. It doesn't mean we're teaching them to be aggressive. And if they are, that's not empowerment. It's disempowering. To teach people to be aggressive is disempowering.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And therefore, sometimes use the word empowerment interchangeably with disempowerment.
Yes.
And it's wrong. Empowerment means acquiring skills. It means doing things for the benefit of society, not for yourself. If it's for yourself, that's it's selfish. If it's for others, that's empowerment. Why am I empowering myself? Why am I gaining skills? So that I can contribute to the society.
Open doors for other people.
Open doors for others. It's not for yourself. If it's for yourself, that's selfish. It's selfless. Empowerment should be selfless in the long run. If it's not, it's aggressive, and there's a problem in the channels.
I have to admit, I'm really learning a lot. I was one of those people who always shied away from feminist conversations because I was like, I'm not going to.
But you understand why you shied away.
Yes, I understand why I shied away. There's a lot I didn't know, and even in my understanding of empowerment, I always felt like, so now the woman can make her own decisions and make her own choices, and then show that man that now she's
it's not about showing the man.
It's not about that.
Being with the man. I know some. Because there are many women who are single, even when they empower themselves, they may not have a man in their life now or ever, then it's for society or it's for their community.
Yeah.
So it's not selfish.
Yeah.
Empowerment should be selfish. That's what I think.
like that.
It's a selfless act. That is what empowerment is.
Yes, and to the example that you gave earlier, the Mrs. Mpanga.
Yes.
Because she was empowered.
You see what happened? Her siblings have changed
like a ripple effect.
landscape of medicine in this country.
Yeah, it's
In
amazing.
East Africa. You
So
see.
empowerment is not selfish. I feel like that for me is my takeaway.
Yes.
today.
It is. It's selfless.
Yeah, it's a very
Yes.
big takeaway,
Yeah.
and I mean what Bev is talking about. Yes, it is empowering yourself, and it is okay even for you to. We always talk about self-love is not selfishness.
That's true.
You see, and it is okay. It's okay for us for women to have skill, to have even for themselves, but also not from a standpoint of selfishness, as you rightly said, because you can't give what you don't have. You see, you can't pour from an empty cup. We also need to, talk about wellness. I need to be well before I can make the world a better place, which is wonderful. Women need resources. They need money. I'm one of the advocates of women having money.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it.
nothing wrong
But
with
it's what money does to you. It's what money does to your brain. It is how money commands the way you relate
On its
with
own, it's
people.
innocent.
There's
Money is innocent.
Nothing
wrong.
Nothing wrong with a woman having money.
Money,
You see?
yeah.
And it is important for women to have money. What's wrong with that? I really want to have money. I need to earn. I need to, do you know how many people I support with money? But also, I also need to have money and buy things for myself.
Yes.
I need to, when I want to go change my hair, buy a shoe, and that's part of empowerment,
Yeah,
economic empowerment. There's nothing wrong with it. But then also how we serve humanity. Because none of us was created just for self-service. No, there's what we do to make ourselves better, but overall, we are created to serve humanity. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Rachel, you asked, has it helped? Yes. I just wanted to add something to what our colleague has talked about. There's so much has been achieved. So much has been achieved. Women being empowered, and I like that you mentioned, it is about attitude, it's about information, it's about information, it's about skill. Empowerment is about skill for problem solving. So when women have been taken to school, and so that's why I was saying, sometimes I think women, we believe every problem you have to solve, you have to be talking and arguing. No, that's not the strategy all the time. Because you see, if you give someone education, what more empowerment are you talking about? So having girls and boys go to school, and I hope Rachel will mention something about empowering women and then going with women only, and then we forget the boys. But the thing is, a lot has been achieved because exposure to opportunities, that's empowerment. A lot has been achieved. Having women in leadership, that's a big thing.
It's huge.
It's huge. And not just for them alone, but for the benefit of society. Of course, we will... I don't know what to say about how women are representative of women's issues. That's a conversation for another time.
Day.
I don't want to go there.
For another day.
Not recently, I think some time back, about 2 years ago, I saw women parliamentarians, and I'm going to risk to say this. I saw women parliamentarians crying for protection against sexual harassment, and I was like, shut up.
Why did I miss that?
I don't remember that.
I saw that, and I thought, yes, and I thought, sorry, women parliamentarians need to be protected from sexual harassment. And they are saying women. But then I was saying, if you can cry to be protected, what happens to this village child, the girl in the village? So I thought sometimes, we abuse these things and we abuse. But honestly, we've had women in leadership, we've had women everywhere. We have women in economics, we have women are supporting the economy. Big time, and it is okay. But we are saying this not from the standpoint of, do you see us? No, we are saying it is important to have men and women contribute to society. That's amazing.
Yeah. I want to ask about the men, and maybe this might be my final question. I was in St. Henry's College, Tovu, about 3 weeks ago we were doing a youth summit, talking to them about life skills, making the right choices. And many of the boys came up to us to say, but you guys, you're always here empowering girls and everything is about the girls, the girl child this, the girl child that, you're giving them opportunities and all these programs. And they were so bitter. These young boys were bitter at their very small age, and saying we're always focusing on the girls, like the men seem to have been forgotten. And I know that these are in empowering the girls. Yes, I think the men, apart from being we are fighting, we're at a war with them, they seem to have been sidelined from this conversation. And yet I feel like they would make very good allies, like we have rightly said, because we need each other in this. So I guess, how do we invite the men back into this conversation on feminism?
The men have always been part. It's the boys. It's the ones who, because the men who are asking questions, men were always part. That's why they're able to ask questions. But the boys have a valid point. Those boys, when I taught at this school, international school, it was actually a problem and had to be addressed at the staff. And they were saying, listen, when a girl does something in class, nothing happens. A boy does the same thing, she's punished. I have to stop the lesson and say, all right, let's talk. Because the lesson was not going to continue. And then there are systems where you address it to the HR, or don't remember what that person was called at that time. There were systems for that. Because I train a lot of teenagers in public speaking, they also speak about it in their schools. These boys who are 16, 17, they're like, enough. We are fed up. But no, it's not even that they're fed up. They're asking, but why?
Why?
So what, because it's a system they've known, they're like, so what happens? It's unfair. For them, it's unfair. Why is this happening? And the problem, so it's not the men. I think the men should have raised their boys and girls. So if the men are aware that they grew up in women's empowerment times, they should be able to address their children and say, listen, this is what happened. There was a time. Now, both of you, what do you want to do? Because long ago, maybe girls weren't playing basketball. Now they're acing it. You know what I mean? They weren't playing football. Now they are. My children played football so much when they were in that school. I think now it's the men who are part of the conversation, the start of the feminism, or at the strength of it. They should be responsible enough now to explain to the children, because you are there for how long? 2 hours. That's it. But they spend more time with their teachers. They spend more time with their. So while you may be able to answer a few questions, the questions will still linger. The problem will still continue. And you know how we had clubs introduced in schools? There has to be a club to address it and say, listen, let's have a club of understanding gender. That's what I think. It's the only way. It's the only way, because it's a real valid challenge. And they come out bitter, and they come up they don't even know how to approach. They don't even know how to speak to girls now in conversation.
Why should I?
They don't know how to woo a girl. Imagine, a boy doesn't know how to woo a girl. They used to work hard to woo girls at sessions. Now and it's a small skill. It seems trivial, but it's such an important skill to know how to have a conversation with a girl. They don't know how to, because they think, this girl is too empowered. I may get a backlash. And that's a problem, because then a man doesn't know his strength. Having a conversation, imagine.
Thank you.
Having a conversation.
I like the schools having gender clubs.
Let them have gender clubs to understand.
I actually think that would address issues that crop up much later when men and women come together and get married. Because a lot of the things that we discuss here are because we don't understand our differences as men and women. We don't know how to play into those differences. We don't know when to back off and say, oh, that's how men behave.
And then even debates. Debates are great. If it's well managed, it's not a debate is great. And if it's a mixed school, let the club have both boys and girls. Patrons, both male teachers and female teachers. Because if it's a female teacher, it may create another problem. Have both a male and female teacher. That basic, so that they know,
this is how
it's about the balance.
Your school owner is a pro tip for you.
but you see, let me throw a spanner
in the works.
Do you know that gender has been understood as women?
Oh, has it?
Like all gender conversations has been understood. You see, and I must admit ignorance here, but like some universities introduced a course on gender studies. But it was perceived as a women studies.
Are you serious?
That's the thing. I think there's a lot of damage
control
we need to do. There's a lot of unlearning we have to promote, and we have to be intentional. I just wanted to mention something about share an experience. I think I tend to see things from afar. When the Beijing conference was going to take place, I had started in 1995. I had just joined the Population Secretariat, and colleagues from the Population Secretariat, including our then National Director, God bless him. I'll not mention his name. I hope he's watching. But that time, I was young. I was from uni because I finished first degree in 1995. And I still remember vividly, we had a workshop to prepare for the team that was going to Beijing. We were in Ginger. I spoke to our national director then. And if he's watching, he will confirm this. I asked him a question. I said, okay, because there was so much excitement. And let me tell you, once again, women, we have the capacity to be so excited. Which is a great strength, but it has its own flip side. So there was a lot of excitement around this. And I remember I engaged doctor. I'm not mentioning the name. I said, doctor, have we also thought about two things? Number one, a point when we'll level up. Where we'll say, because we are trying to attain equality, but at what point
will we say we have
attained this? And I trained in monitoring and evaluation. We have to have some measurement points at some point to say, I think we're good. And so let's do this. I doubt that we ever thought about that. And I said to him, are you sure we won't get to a point where we have one empowered group and now another disempowered? So you create this problem, or rather you solve this problem, but then you're creating another one. I think we don't need a prophet to tell us that those are the times we are.
That's why boys are asking these questions.
You understand?
Yes.
Now, that is a problem. Now, I want also to say this to you ladies. Have you noticed that there is a lot of conversation in the NGO and the development world where the women and children. What happens? Women and girls, actually. Women and girls. Domestic violence, women and girls. Gender-based violence is women. So I really feel there is a lot of, number one, let's reflect. Let's sit and face it. And have the kind of conversation we are having here at a higher level and say, we've achieved this, but what possible damages have we had that we need to fix? You see? Now, you talked about, I want to still make reference to the brilliant point you mentioned. This empowerment is about knowledge, it's about skill. I've also mentioned on this forum that life is about skill. Life management, all of life management is about skill. What skill are we talking about? Conversation, communication, conversation. Ability to hold conversation. Powerful. Ability to work in teams is powerful. What has made women powerful? It is ability to hold conversation. This is a big skill. Now, what happens when men meet? The way they talk, they communicate is totally different. We've talked about how men relate at functional level. They're talking about soccer, those players, those money, cars, and all, which is important, but that is not problem solving.
No.
You see? Now, when we empower people, we create awareness. what I mentioned, self-awareness, social awareness, problem solving. But how have we empowered men and boys? You see, men are from boys. And we're talking generational issues. You know, the person who was, I don't know, 6 years in 1995, how old are they now? You see, they are a man. So how have we been intentional in empowering the girl, in empowering the boy, so that they can have peaceful coexistence? Rachel, please don't forget this. For me, my approach is, how can we promote an environment? This feminism was meant to promote an equality. So how are we? How did we? And how are we still promoting peaceful,
peaceful
coexistence of genders? Right? Now, I think there we have lost it. Right? But then also, the biggest problem has been thinking that the man is already made.
It's already made, yes.
That it doesn't need empowering.
They don't need empowering
that's because of the idea that feminism was against men, was against the system. Feminism wasn't founded on the idea that men were perfect. It was founded on the idea that there was just inequality of access.
An imbalance.
100%.
Of access. And therefore, these empowerment programs for women were supposed to create the access that men already had. But it's like saying every boy who goes to a certain school should come out perfect. No, only a handful do, because, so if this was a school program, in other words, if girls who go to a certain school are supposed to be made a certain way, but not all of them do, has the school failed? Or was the girl's ability different? You see? So that's the thing. So with feminism, was it the system, the movement of feminism, or was it that the challenge of the individuals within it? So we have to decide, what was it? Feminism on its principles was a great, as we said, was a great, again, we have to go back and say it's not about individuals. And we know gender is a social construct. It's about the idea of being feminine, the idea of being
male.
Sex is something you won't change. I was born, well, some people have tried.
Let's not go there.
But let's not go there. But what I'm saying is gender as a social construct. We have to understand, what do we mean when we say a man or masculine? What do we mean when we say a woman and feminine? And let these children not be confused about it. Because some may think, so a woman means being, or a man being, what do you mean? I'm a man. What does that mean now? If a boy can say, it's a bit much, then what does it mean? Is a man now a man as it was? What does it mean? What does it mean?
So going back to the drawing board, doing some reflection on how far we have come with this initiative, where we have gone wrong, the damage that has been caused, and then how do we, I guess,
continue with the strengths and educate, re-educate.
Exactly.
Because we are dealing with generations.
That too.
We are dealing with generations. And so, yes, there are benefits. So how can we, and I think, Rachel, the challenge we've also had, building on my point, that assuming that men are already men, but also them living a lie, that they are already made. So they go like, I have nothing. That's why, for instance, men have a challenge participating in self-improvement initiatives, because they feel, I'm already
I'm already fine.
Or even going for counseling.
Or women going for counseling.
We see that a lot,
Because they don't believe, because life is about problem solving. So how have we equipped men? How have we made them aware that they need help? They need support. How have we made them aware that they need these little skills that we are talking about? When, for instance, it comes to negotiation, communication, these simple problem solving, because a woman has participated in this. Now, from a relational science standpoint, the more you do things, the more you perfect, right? So, and of course, we have special skills like in special gifting in communication. You see, articulation. Women have a special gift, but then not all of them are great. It has to be enhanced. But then men, how can we get them from this structural level of communication to engagement, and so that they can manage relationships? How can we empower them to manage relationships? Things like leadership. We think men are already made. That's not true. Leadership is a skill. How have we empowered them? They have a special gift of leadership, but how have we nurtured that in men, in boys, in everything? So I think we need to be a little more balanced, and then also to help men know, sorry, the things that defined power have been invaded. I can never stop talking about it. We all have power. Now, if you keep defining yourself with something that any person can get, then over time you're going to be irrelevant. You see? So if you say, for me, my work, me, I can have money. What does it mean? Because now everyone can have money. That's why we are having a problem, because that's why men are getting angry. They're like, these women have taken our
now
things.
that they have some money,
have their money, they can't fit in their skins. But that's not the point. The men were left behind, and they were left to define themselves with parts that have moved over time. So now they realize, hey, I can vote. No, now even the woman can vote. Or me, money, but now everyone can.
I'm a CEO.
I'm a CEO.
But
now a woman can also be in leadership. There's nothing wrong with either gender. The problem is that you got stuck in a world that no longer exists. Yeah. So I think that's what we.
I need to bring this to a close. Otherwise, we can talk about until the cows come home. So I want you both to give your parting shots in under a minute, if you can manage that, Dr. Ibas. I'm looking at you. If you can do in under a minute, and maybe speak to, I think, what you'd want for people to take away from this conversation, because I think many times when you have conversations like this, someone maybe may have been triggered along the way. They're like, this people don't know what they're talking about. But what's that one thing you'd want them to walk away with? Especially leaning towards, how do we re-educate ourselves? How do we have non-polarizing conversations on this subject, which is still very relevant today as much as it was many, many years ago?
I look into the camera, right?
Please.
Hello, Agri. Thank you, Rachel and Dr. Ibas. This was enlightening and empowering, selfless conversation. And I believe selfless conversations result because your true intention was to empower others. This wasn't for me. As I continue learning, I know that I teach Sunday school. I know that I meet teams in my journey of work. And therefore, when they watch this, it's the selflessness of hoping that they're supported by the education on feminism. I believe feminism is a good and perfect gift, just like salvation. And just like salvation, many people use it in the name of Jesus and abuse it for their own selfish ends. In the same way, feminism, built on a beautiful foundation, built by feminists who had such brand great ideas, some people have decided to use it to selfishly create their own ambitions, which have distorted the message and have led to many people confused about the idea. Learn more about it. Learn that equal access to opportunities is a beautiful thing, and that when girls are empowered, boys should be empowered as well. If you have young children now and they're confused, empower both together, girls and boys together. Gender is about girls and boys. And once we do that, we can re-educate an entire generation so that feminism is lifted to where it's supposed to be.
Love it.
Yeah, sure. Same thing. I think for me, Amor is for peace, peaceful coexistence. So the whole notion of feminism is to promote peaceful coexistence and leveling up and helping people to have equal access to resources, because we are stronger together. So that is important. Secondly, feminism is not a fight. It's not war of genders. No, it's not. It's actually to promote, once again, teamwork and peaceful coexistence. Once we do this, then we are going to have meaningful relationships as children grow, and teaching them to know that we are promoting good human coexistence.
Coexistence.
Good human beings. You know, when people are good human beings, it's beneficial to them. It's also beneficial to the rest of humanity. So once we do that, and then we don't promote this divisive thing of you are a woman, you are now. If you say you are a woman, I say you are a man. So what?
So what? Yeah.
So what? So I think we just need to step up a little bit, engage in more meaningful conversations, and make sure that we are promoting peaceful living. Peaceful. We are not in this world for long. Just imagine you spend your entire lifetime fighting, and then off you go. What have you gained? So I think that's what we are trying to do. And so, yes, so while we do that, then we are going to have happier people. My last message is also to men to know that this was not war against them. And so they shouldn't come for us.
Well, I don't see any reason for them to come.
Yes, they
There were no
shouldn't come
attacks.
for us
Yeah.
because honestly, that is happening. Sometimes I catch this in my therapy work where someone is just pursuing mindset things, that distortions which are not real. But if we know that we are both aiming at the same thing, then that's okay. Let men be open to learning because empowerment is about knowledge and skill.
Yeah.
Above everything, get knowledge, get understanding, and then we'll live better.
Knowledge and understanding. I love it. Educate yourself. And I hope that we have done a fantastic job today, this week, to educate you on feminism and why it exists and maybe where we stand today and how you can be part of this very wonderful initiative to create peaceful coexistence, empowerment that is not selfish, and just equal access opportunities for women, which then will have a ripple effect in society. And I mean, who doesn't want to live in an environment where everyone has access to different things and I can open doors for other people? I think it's a wonderful world. It's a wonderful world. Wow. That's it from us. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know in our comment section what has stood out for you. Maybe what you felt like we could have tackled better. We appreciate the feedback, or maybe something that we can have in a subsequent conversation. We would love to do that when we do hear from you. Until next week, stay well, stay healthy, and please subscribe to our channel. Please. Bye.